Alright, so this is a suggestion via a donation. The name of the video is The Surprisingly Plausible Theory that Pyramids Were Poured from Ancient Concrete. Alright. Alright.
This video is brought to you by KiwiCo. If you've been watching today, I found out for long, you know this is one of our favorite sponsors, and in fact, I've personally had a subscription to their crates, which I've always paid for myself, by the way, since I first learned about them a couple years back when they reached out to sponsor us, and we wanted to check them out with some crates for my daughters.
That's not Simon, is it?
Before we agreed to let them sponsor us. This subscription has been particularly handy with COVID as a great way to have some extra fun educational activities for my now 3- and 6-year-old littles to do at home, as well as just fun.
The pyramids at Giza are among the most famous.
Let's go, guys.
The Egyptian pyramids at Giza are among the most famous and storied monuments in the world. The oldest of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, and the only one still standing, they have awed and inspired travelers, scholars, poets, and artists for thousands of years. Yet despite this timeless fascination, relatively little is known about who built the pyramids or why. Few records survive of the pharaohs, Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, and while the pyramids are...
Guys, I'm pretty much leaning towards somewhere around Khafre.
But assumed to be tombs, there is surprisingly little evidence of anyone actually being buried within them. Yet the greatest mystery of all is how the pyramids were actually built. The Great Pyramid of Khufu stands at 146 meters tall, weighs 6 million tons, and is composed of nearly 2.3 million granite and limestone blocks weighing up to 80 tons each. Yet the structure is nearly perfectly level and square, the blocks so close-fitting that a piece of paper will not fit between them. And most astonishing of all, the work appears to have been completed in less than 20 years. How such precision construction on such a massive scale could be completed so quickly by people possessing only Bronze and Stone Age tools?
Aliens, bro. It's the aliens. You didn't know?
Is a question that has baffled Egyptologists for centuries. While the obvious answer is, of course, as ever, aliens. In 1974, a French
I told you, it's aliens.
Chemist named Joseph David Ovitz forwarded a radical new theory that the pyramid blocks were not cut, but rather poured. To begin with, any theory explaining how the pyramids were built must contend with 4 basic problems. How the blocks were quarried and carved into shape, how the blocks were transported from the quarries to the construction site, how the blocks were raised to the upper levels of the pyramid, and finally, how the entire structure was kept square and level. Thanks to evidence left behind at ancient quarry sites like Aswan, ancient Egyptian stone cutting techniques are fairly well understood. Large stone blocks were hewn by first cutting a line of holes using a bow drill into which were inserted wooden wedges. These wedges were then soaked in water, causing them to expand and fracture the stone. The rough cut block would be carved to shape using bronze chisels and polished smooth using stone burnishes, the finished block being transported to the building site using barges sailing along the Nile. How the blocks were then moved from the river to the pyramid site itself, however, is
questionable.
The traditional theory is that they were dragged on wooden sledges, but the only known depiction of this technique comes from the tomb of Dj-Hotep, maybe on the pronunciation there, a provincial governor who died around 1900 BC. A carving on the tomb wall depicts a giant stone statue of the man mounted on a sledge being pulled by 172 workers, while other workers pour water or oil on the ground to lubricate its path. While calculations have shown that the statue...
Guys, I've never seen this image. I've never seen it. And I've seen a lot. Like I have multiple Egypt-themed tattoos on my body, bro.
Would have been comparable to the Great Pyramid blocks, and that such a lubricated sledge would have worked. No trace of his statue has ever been found.
Of a depiction of the Pharaoh Khafre on me. Of course, I have the Eye of Ra. Then I have the Egyptian Key of Life.
Nor has any other depiction of this technique. It is thus unknown whether the use of sledges to move heavy stone objects was ever a common practice. An alternate theory is aliens. An alternate
aliens, guys.
Theory is that the ancient Egyptians used log rollers, which were continuously carried forward as the block rolled along. But this explanation presents a different problem. Based on the average rate of wear for such rollers, moving the 2.3 million blocks used in the Great Pyramid would have required so many trees that all of Egypt would have had to have been deforested.
Yeah. Like they would literally be going through multiple pieces of these blocks, seriously, just to move like one of them. They'd be be rebuilding these things consistently if that was a factual statement. So we definitely need another theory, bro.
The next problem is how the stones were lifted to the upper levels of the pyramid. Here, the traditional explanation has the Egyptians using giant ramps, either a single linear ramp or a spiral ramp winding around the outside of the pyramid. But both of these theories have serious flaws. A linear ramp would have required nearly as much stone as the pyramid itself, doubling the construction time and the material to be quarried, and a spiral ramp would have made maintaining the pyramid's precise shape extremely difficult. In his chronicle of his travels through Egypt, the 5th century BCE Greek historian Herodotus describes a crane-like device used in the construction of stone monuments, but this account was written more than 2,000 years after the construction of the Great Pyramids of Giza, and no other evidence of such a device has ever been found. The final riddle of the pyramid's construction is how the whole structure was kept square and level. One theory posits that a trench was dug around the foundation of the pyramid and filled with water, the surface of which was then used as a guide for leveling the base. While certainly plausible, this does not account for the highly precise fit and alignment of all the blocks, as a carving error of even a fraction of a degree in a single block would have been amplified down to the row of stones, throwing off the alignment of the entire structure. Thus, given our current knowledge, nearly every accepted theory of the pyramid's construction suffers from at least one major flaw. And this is where Joseph David Ovid enters the picture. Born in 1935, David Ovid has an impressive resume, holding a French degree in chemical engineering, a German PhD in chemistry, and a professorship of applied archaeology at Barry University and Penn State, and was made Chevalier de l'Ordre National de Mérite by French President Jacques Chirac in 1998. When in the early 1970s David Ovid turned his eye to the pyramids, he immediately noticed something strange. The limestone in the pyramid blocks did not match that of the quarries where they supposedly originated. Natural Egyptian limestone contains around 96 to 99% calcite and 0.5 to 2.5% quartz.
Okay, so then where did the stones go? If they're not matching the stones that were being quarried, where are the stones that were quarried?
Dolomite, gypsum, and iron aluminosilicate, but the pyramid blocks contain only 85 to 90% calcite, as well as extra minerals such as opal, hydroxyl apatite, and silico-aluminate. Furthermore, the microstructure of the stone is strangely amorphous or glass-like, with large numbers of tiny air bubbles not found in natural limestone. Stranger still, many of the blocks are oddly
Are they really?
stratified, with large fossil fragments concentrated at the bottom and lighter grains at the top, rather than they're being distributed in alternating bands as in regular.
Because guys, like, I've been to Egypt a couple of times, like to Giza, right? And I've seen the pyramid multiple times, and I'm just like, bro, I don't know if I'd have to probably check some of my photos, guys. I don't recall, guys, if there are like these strange air bubbles, like, that's interesting. I've never even paid attention. Now I need to probably pay attention
limestone.
to that.
The final clue was a block found on the Giza Plateau that appeared to be composed of two different
I am not going back to Egypt.
kinds of stone, one half of which had eroded faster than the other. From the evidence, David Ovid drew an astonishing conclusion. The pyramid blocks are not composed of natural limestone, but rather a reconstituted geopolymer, a type of ancient Egyptian concrete. According to David Ovid's theory,
Guys, we would need to have more examples.
The blocks were not quarried and transported to Giza, but rather cast in place in wooden molds. This would account for the extreme precision of the pyramid's construction, as the initial liquid state of the limestone concrete would have made the blocks self-leveling and allowed for extremely thin seams between blocks. This technique was also ideal for use on the Giza Plateau, which has abundant supplies of soft, crumbly limestone, otherwise unsuited to large-scale construction. In his laboratory, David Ovid succeeded in creating a reconstituted limestone concrete using only 4 ingredients that were readily available to the ancient Egyptians: water, crushed limestone, quicklime, and natron, a mixture of salt and sodium bicarbonate found on the banks of the Nile and widely used in mummification. When David Ovid sent out samples of his lab-made concrete for blind analysis, along with pieces of actual pyramid stone,
he was called a quack. I'm almost positive. Trust me. The amount of people that would hear this and they'll be like, this explanation is terrible. What's funny is that I do think that they had the intelligence to do it, bro. I do, absolutely. Right? Is it plausible? This is extremely plausible. I've never thought about it like this, but it's absolutely like that's the way they did it. It sounds like it. Like I feel like I want to change my whole theory. Obviously, I won't. I would need to study this a whole lot, which I will probably end up obsessing over.
Every laboratory reported that the two samples were identical in composition. The result appeared definitive. David Ovitz had finally cracked the age-old riddle of how the pyramids were built. In 1988, he published his results in a book titled The Built of the Pyramids. Yet despite the chemical evidence...
Yup, that guy right there. Ooh, this man right here, bro. Oh, he doesn't like that. Oh, no. He doesn't like that. He doesn't like foreigners, bro. He absolutely, strongly detests foreigners in his country looking at anything Egypt-oriented. He is extremely bitter. But with any... I get it. I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. I get it, right? Like, if this was my country, very specifically, and there were people that were from outside, coming in and... taking credit, and not even just taking credit, taking objects, right, from my country that have historical value to my country. I get it. I understand his point of reasons why he hates, foreigners so much, at least in Egypt. But I'm trying to think what he said. He said something that I laughed at so hard, guys. What did he say? He said something like, the only reason why the Europeans... Hold on, wait. The only reason why the pyramids are still in Egypt is because they were too heavy for the Europeans to take back to Europe. That's what he said. So, or something in that vein of thought. That's basically what he said. I laughed so hard at this, bro. I was like, oh my, that's not funny, but it's funny. That's pretty damn funny. But listen, he's an interesting individual. He's really good at what he does. He's found a lot of interesting things. He absolutely has, but he really doesn't like foreigners in his country. That's it. But all right.
Backing his theory, it immediately attracted overwhelming scorn and hostility from mainstream Egyptologists.
Oh, yeah,
Among David Ovitz's
like
greatest critics is Zahi Hawass, former Egyptian Minister of State for Antiquities Affairs, who of the theory stated, "It's highly stupid. The pyramids are made from solid blocks of quarried limestone. To suggest otherwise is idiotic and insulting."
Bro, your presence is idiotic and insulting. All disrespect intended, guys. This is a problem that I have generally with like modern and like contemporary archaeologists, guys. Maybe this is just like a weird thing with me, guys. But like I don't know. Just because it is different from your current thought, right? You can't just cast it aside like it's nothing. Right? Like if this man went through all these studies to basically prove that this is a plausible thing, and then you just instantly throw it out, sir, don't want that guy. Don't want this guy right here. Right? And honestly, it sounds like something he would say. There are a lot of things not happening regarding Giza and Luxor, guys. Almost exclusively because of this man here. There are a lot of things, a lot of discoveries not happening because if he doesn't have his hands on it, very specifically, then he just thinks it should never be done. It cannot be done, right? I get it. There are a whole lot of people coming from outside of Egypt. He does accept like American interns or European interns and things like that. A lot of Americans and Europeans do work, and Asians do work for him. But just be fully aware, bro. If he's not the person moving the cover stone on a sarcophagus, he doesn't want you to be involved. He doesn't want you in his project, right? I mean, I get it. Again, I'm not trying to gripe too hard here, but I am, right? Because we're missing out on a lot of information. A lot of it, and a lot of it is because of this man here, guys.
State for Antiquities Affairs, who of the theory stated, "It's highly stupid. The pyramids are made from solid blocks of quarried limestone. To suggest otherwise is idiotic and insulting." Many geologists were also dismissive of the theory, with a 2007 study by Dipayan Jana of Columbia University that, contrary to David Ovitz's claims, the pyramid casing blocks are in fact chemically and geologically identical to natural limestone quarried at Tura and other sites and distinct from David Ovitz's lab-made geopolymer. In turn, David Ovitz accused Jana of not analyzing an actual pyramid stone, while in 2006 an analysis by Michael W. Barsum of Philadelphia Drexel University independently confirmed that the pyramid and quarry stones were geologically distinct. And Well, the debate rages on. David Itz himself admits that there are still several gaps in his hypothesis, such as the 8,000 tons of granite blocks used to construct the core of the pyramid. These match stone from the quarries in Aswan, and unlike the limestone, would have had to have been cut and moved by hand. But as this stonework only accounts for 0.3% of the pyramid's weight, it does not preclude the use of cast limestone to expedite the rest of the structure's construction. Also missing is any evidence of the infrastructure required to mix such vast quantities of concrete. But as the village that housed the pyramid's construction force was only discovered in 1988, David Ovitz is confident that this evidence will eventually emerge. For now, however, his ideas remain on the fringes of archaeological discourse, naturally secondary to the more widely accepted theory of those ancient aliens. So I really hope you found—
Because definitely, bro, it was definitely the aliens. You didn't know? The aliens did it, bro. Come on, the aliens did it. There could be no other way things could get done. No, of course not. Why would they be? Because the aliens did it. Right? Guys, the poured concrete, like the poured ancient Egyptian concrete, right, makes a lot of sense if they're just doing the outside. I mean, if the inside of the pyramids itself is those, basically that's where the quarried stone went. Yeah, I mean, obviously, right, they still had to lift it. How did they do that? We can have that discussion, but I do think that I'm definitely going to dig into, like, my images. I took a lot of, like really high-definition images of bits and pieces of the pyramid, right? So I'm going to look. It won't matter if I look or not, right? It would do nothing to change history, obviously, because everyone can do that, right? But just for the sake of myself, I would definitely like to look at some of the some close-up images to see if there are, in fact, air bubbles. But that's also at the same time, guys, that can also be erosion from sand. Guys, troubling. But all right, listen, let me know in the comments. The next one of these from him that I should be checking out that I have not encountered, and I will get into that as soon as I possibly can. All right, and listen, you guys all have an absolutely amazing day and enjoy your day thoroughly.